Welcome dear students, welcome to the fourth part of childhood and adolescence. In this module, we will be discussing about the issues of equity and inclusion. These days, there is a lot of talk going on about equity and inclusion. So, let us try to understand what is equity. Now, according to the United Nations Girls Education Initiative, equity requires all children's right to education and their rights within and through education to realize their potentials and aspirations. It also requires implementing and institutionalizing all arrangements that help ensure all children to achieve these aims. Now let us try to have a look of the definition of inclusion. Inclusion requires responding to the diversity and needs among all learners through increasing participation in learning, cultures and communities, and reducing exclusion from and within education. It involves change in content, approaches, structures and strategies driven by a common vision that covers all children and the conviction that it is the responsibility of the regular system to educate all of them. So, we can say that these are some of the core issues which are concerning the field of education. How do we bring about equity and inclusion in the field of education? Let us try to have a look at why are we discussing so much about equity and inclusion? Why is our society not already inclusive by nature? So, our answer to this question is actually no. Our society is divided into lots and lots of sub classes and castes, and on the basis of there are number of you can say the dimensions on the basis of which we discriminate. There is a lot of discrimination happening among individuals, and there are certain sections of the society which are totally excluded from the ambit of education. Let us try to have a look at those the various forms of exclusion that exist in India, different castes and classes. So, there are historically we are a diverse society, and there are so many castes and subclasses which are existing within our society. And if we look history of our education system, we see that there have been classes and castes of people which have been left throughout the ambit of education. So, the specifically we are referring to certain castes which are considered to be low caste or classes of people. So, different castes and classes are there which are totally excluded from the education system. Gender. In most of the metropolitan towns and even cities, there is generally no distinction as far as education is concerned between girls and boys. But yes, if we go into the interiors, maybe rural areas and far flung remote areas, there are certain places where there is a lot of distinction between the girls and boys. The girls at in most of these places, the girls are at a disadvantageous position. And let us not forget about the transgender or the third genders. Now the transgenders and the third genders are a sizable proportion of our society, and it's an irony that they are totally excluded from all forms of or in all sections of the society's work and culture. They are people who are not even accepted by their own parents, and it is none of their fault, and they are discriminated against. And to a very recent you can say, it's a very recent happening that they have been included in in the admission forms. Otherwise, in every whether you talk of educational institutions or whether you talk of some applying somewhere, right at the admission stages, they were cancelled. Their candidature was cancelled because they were neither male nor female. But yes, now our society is looking up for a change, and which is a very positive sign. Then there are children who are coming from the poor or economically weaker sections of the society. There are some people who just cannot afford to send their children to schools, and government has been doing its bit. But yes, there again, in spite of all these efforts by the government, we find that there are so many children who are out of the schools. The elderly people, the migrants or children coming from the migrant sections, the social excludes like the criminals or children coming from criminal background, prostitutes, people with conditions like HIV, AIDS, etc. They are the people or people who defy societal norms, people who are outcast by the society owing to various reasons. Say in some of the areas or rural areas, people who get involved into inter-caste marriages, they are even excluded from the society, and as a result their children also have to bear a brunt of this. Then there are tribal sections in our country who are kind of excluded from the education system, and people or children with disabilities or special needs. So children with special needs were considered, I mean, throughout the world, there was a time when they were not sent to schools at all, they were homebound, and to the large extent even the parents were scared or even ashamed of being them being born as their own children. Then came a time when they were sent to special schools, but special schools had their own limitations, and then there was a shift towards integration, that is children with special needs were sent to the normal schools, but yes, they had their separate section. And now we are talking of inclusion, that is including everybody irrespective of their caste, class, religion, linguistic background, educational background, financial background, abilities in the same section in an age appropriate classroom. So this is what inclusion is all about. Now if we have a look at the kinds of learners that we can have in our classes, we have the so-called normal children. Now why I have highlighted it in inverted commas is normal. What is normality or who is a normal child is a kind of a misnomer. Something which is considered to be perfectly normal here may not be considered to be normal somewhere else, or something which was not considered to be not normal say some time ago or a few years ago is considered to be normal today. So the notion of normality is a changing one, it's a dynamic one, and who defines or who decides what is normal and what is not so normal. So that is one category. Then we have the gifted children, children who are highly intelligent or highly creative. They are also learners whom we have to think about them, and we have to nurture their capabilities. If we do not nurture their capabilities, their special you can say special capabilities will just fade away. Then we have children who are physically or differently abled on a physical level. We may have children with visual impairments or total blindness, hearing impairments or total deafness, locomotor disability owing to various reasons, speech and communication disorders. Then we can have children with intellectual deficiency, that is children who have low IQ, which is considered to be the below the benchmark. Then we have children, there are specific conditions like cerebral palsy, autism spectrum disorder. These are spectrum disorders, both cerebral palsy and autism spectrum disorder. That means two children having autism may or may not be the same. They may vary distinctly as far as their capabilities and abilities are concerned. So that is why they are known as spectrum disorders. Then we have a category which is known as children with learning disabilities. These are children, many a times people confuse between learning disability and intellectual deficiency. These two are totally different categories. Intellectual deficiency would mean that a person's IQ is low. The normal range of IQ is somewhere between 80 to 100, and people with lower level of intelligence, lower than 70 to 80, they are considered to be marginal cases or slow learners. People below the 70 IQ, they are considered to be intellectually deficient. So they are people who are inherently born with low IQ, or they may have met with some accident, and because of which their intelligence has been affected. But learning disability has got nothing to do with intelligence. They may be of average intelligence, they may be of very high intelligence, but they may have specific difficulties as far as other capabilities are concerned. Learning disabilities are generally considered of three types: dyslexia, dysgraphia and dyscalculia. Dyslexia is about difficulty in understanding the written symbols, that is their phonological component is missing, so they may not be able to translate the visual symbols, that is alphabets, letters or numerical numbers into sense, and so that is why that is their difficulty. Dyslexia. Dysgraphia is difficulty in writing or consolidating the ideas into written form. Dyscalculia is disability to perform the basic mathematical operations. Then we have children with certain behavioral problems like ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder. Now these children are very, very challenging children. They are very, the teachers generally find it very difficult to handle and control these children. But let us try to understand that the children, they are having lot of behavioral problems. It is not because that they are wanting to be like that. It's basically they have no control over it, and they require medication and counseling continuously over a period of time. So these are the generally or broadly, these are different kinds of learners which can be there in our classrooms, and how we can as teachers help each and every learner of our class to come up to a particular level. And then we also have in our classes children coming from the economically backward sections of the society. We already know that according to the government norms, 25% of seats in any private unaided institution is reserved for the economically backward sections of the society. So we have children coming from the economically backward sections of the society, or children coming from the socially disadvantaged groups, as we discussed earlier, the excluded groups. Now let us try to understand the difference between equality and equity. Many a times students tend to confuse between equality and equity. Actually, there are two different concepts. Equality is when we provide the same kind of facilities or the same kinds of benefits to all children or all people irrespective of their requirements. Whereas equity is depending upon their requirements, depending on their abilities, we distinguish between the kinds of facilitations that we provide. Somebody who needs more, you can say facilities, is given more facilities, and somebody who does not need those facilitations may not be given one. So as it is very clear from the diagram or the picture that is there. Now let us try to see the inclusive practices which are there in India. A very important landmark in was that India signed the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, that is UNCRPD, in the year 2007. In fact, India was one of the first signatories of signing the UNCRPD, and under its provisions, it is mandatory for India to allow inclusive practices for all children. That means all children, irrespective of their abilities, they have to be admitted in the age appropriate classrooms, and India has made it mandatory for all schools to be following this. No school can deny admission to any child on the basis of his or her abilities. Also under section 12 of the Right to Education, Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, which is also known as the RTE Act, has made it compulsory for every private unaided school to admit at least 25% of its entry level class from children belonging to weaker and economically disadvantaged groups, making inclusive practices mandatory for all. So the implication is all schools, they have to admit children with special needs and children from economically backward sections, that is 25% of the seats are reserved for the economically backward sections, and no school can deny admission to any child on the basis of his or her capabilities or abilities. Now let us try to see what are the barriers to inclusive practices in India. There are infrastructural barriers. The schools are yet not ready to, or they are basically not you can say infrastructurally they are well equipped to handle children coming from different classes, and also catering to the needs of different children with special needs. Then we have technological barriers. Technology costs money, and basically schools are not in a position to maybe spend, or there is lack of awareness, and also there is a lack of general attitude towards spending on for the benefit of children with special needs. A general notion is there, when we are not able to do so much with our own normal children, how can we help the children with special needs? So again, I would like to put across that studies have proven that, and if we look at the examples from all over the world, if sufficient resources and sufficient infrastructure is provided to children or persons with special needs, they can do wonders. So it is basically you can say a mental block or an attitudinal block in the minds of our teachers, parents, also school managers, that there is nothing that is much which can be done to help the children with special needs. And these attitudinal barriers are the foremost or the primemost. If attitudinal barriers are not there, if somebody with a positive attitude, in spite of in spite of infrastructural facilities not there, in spite of say technological facilities are not there, but if somebody has got a positive attitude, a teacher has got a positive attitude, can bring wonders to his or her class and can do wonders with any child with special needs. So this is something which we need to break. Attitudinal barriers on the part of management, attitudinal barriers on the part of administrators, attitudinal barriers on the part of teachers, parents and peer group. The children also need to be sensitized, the teachers need to be sensitized, the overall administrative and support staff of the schools, they need to be sensitized. And preparedness of the teachers on pedagogical level and attitudinal level, which is very important. So even if a teacher attitude wise is very positive and she would want to do her level best, she would want to contribute positively towards the growth and development of all her students, but if she does not have the pedagogical know-how, that means in what manners, how can she actually help students with special needs or all different kinds of children. So at times she may actually do more harm than good. So that preparedness of teachers needs to be there. Teachers need to be prepared how to handle, and also an awareness level of the teachers needs to be raised. If they are facing any issues or if they are facing any concerns, what are the agencies they can look up to. So teachers generally they do not know, even if they are wanting to do, if they are having a problem, where else can they go. Then there are lack of resources and materials for children with special needs. Not many resources have. There are, with coming of technology and internet, yes, progresses have been made in the field of you can say education, with audiobooks and podcasts and various softwares coming in which translate text to speech or which translate speech to text, but still we have a long way to go. Now, how can we help our adolescents in coming through this stages of adolescence, which is considered to be a very turbulent stage, and how can we help them build resilience so that they come out winning individuals in their life? The first and the foremost is values inculcation. It is very important that if we want to save our country, if we want to save our society, if we want to save our citizens from whatever negative influences which are there, it is very important that we make them imbibe humane values, not particularly corresponding to any particular religion or ideology, but there are some specific you can say human values which are always there. So if we inculcate those values among our adolescents, it is almost certain that they will come out very successful in life. And very important is inculcation of life skills. In the previous modules also, I have been stressing on the inculcation of life skills, that is intellectual, emotional and social, which are very important. They are in fact more important than the academics. Generally in India, parents tend to focus only on academics and how much marks their children have scored, but whatever knowledge that they have generated or they have accumulated over a period of time, all knowledge is going to go redundant in such a short span of time. These days we are living in a knowledge explosion you can phase, and the quantum of knowledge, as they say, is doubling every 5 years. So you can very well imagine the amount of knowledge that we have today. In another 5 years it will double up itself. So it is basically not possible for any individual to attain or to accumulate all that knowledge which is there. But what actually is going to sustain individuals throughout their life is the life skills. They should know how to learn, learning how to learn, and learning how to unlearn, learning how to relearn. So these are some of the skills which are considered to be very, very important. So intellectual skills, wherein we are talking of decision making, problem solving, analytical skills. Emotional skills, that is empathy, And social skills में the communication, how do you present yourself, your negotiation skills, your interpersonal skills, your intrapersonal skills. So an adolescent needs to be very, very confident with all of these. If and in adolescent who is not so great with academics but is very good with his or her life skills will come out to be a successful human being. And if somebody who is very good with academics but is very low on life skills or doesn't know anything about the life skills may not be successful. Then helping adolescents to plan for life. They should always have a planning. What is it that they want to do, not being imposed by somebody else. And they should also have alternatives. Say if plan A, plan B, plan C. If this doesn't work out, then what else? If this doesn't work out, then what else? It gives them hope that yes, their life is comprised of a lot of alternatives and they should fall back on something or the other. So that is something which each adolescent needs to work on, and the adolescent also needs to know that there is a perfect support system, people who are there to support him or her in his decisions, but the decision has to be of the adolescent. Degrees of freedom, yes, this is what we are talking about. The adolescent needs to have those degrees of freedom wherein he or she is left to explore things, as we were discussing about say the case of moratorium. So moratorium mein the students, they are exploring and they are trying to come to come to a conclusion regarding what exactly they want to do in life, what exactly they want to be in life. So those degrees of freedom have to be there, and then only they will come out to be a successful, or you can say a person with true or authentic self identity, a positive self concept and a good self esteem. Role of role models. Positive role models are there, and this is a stage when students and adolescents are actually, they look up to the role models. So the society needs to give them good role models. If they are following people who are not fit to be role models, it's going to be difficult. And liberty to decide for themselves. They need to, I mean, that kind of, without the parents telling them or without the teachers telling them, they need to be given this liberty that yes, you can decide what subjects you are supposed to be doing, what career you want to take up, what line of profession you would want to take up. If not this, then this, then this. Encourage positive hobbies and passions, because hobbies and passions can help us in any life's adversity. You can always fall back on your passions and hobby. If somebody doesn't have any passion, I mean, if there is an you can say downslide going on in the career, what recourses the person has. So it's very important for anybody to inculcate some positive hobbies and passions. Diverse interests need to be inculcated. Being themselves and accepting themselves is very important. It is very important. Nobody can be an expert in being somebody else. We are expert in being our own selves, or we can be expert in being our own selves. We cannot emulate or we cannot imitate others indefinitely. Ultimately, we need to accept, and this acceptance needs to be taught to the, or they need to be exposed to this idea of self acceptance. You are what you are, and being proud of being whatever you are, being proud of whatever your accomplishments are, being proud of whatever you are as a person, and accepting themselves. Then only we can think that the adolescents will be developing, or they will think of a good positive self concept and self esteem. Promoting mental health is very important, and most very important thing is focusing on resilience. That is, no matter whatever happens, there is always, you can push that aside, you can always bounce back. Life is not just about only you can say losing out a few things, but it is much beyond that. It is much, I mean, we see in the newspapers students getting so much good marks, say for example 80%, 90%, still committing suicides because they did not come up to their own expectations or their parents' expectations or somebody else's expectations. This resilience needs to be taught to the students. Life is not only about marks. Life is not only about relationships. Somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend leaves this person and the person commits suicide. Life is not just about that. Somebody's parents are going through a difficult phase and therefore the child commits suicide. So this is not about that. So students, children, adolescents, they need to be taught that life is much beyond all of these things, and they need to keep everything aside and move on. Now, this was all about the various issues and concerns which children and adolescents face in their lives. Now, let us try to check your progress. I would like that please try to answer these following questions. Now, what is meant by the concept of equity and inclusion? Have you seen any forms of violation of the principles of equity and inclusion around you? Critically analyze any 5 of them. What are the various forms of exclusion prevalent in our society, and what is the role of the media in encouraging or discouraging such practices? What are the different types of learners in today's classrooms, and how can we foster a positive all-round development in adolescents? And taking examples from your own life, try to analyze each and every aspect of those answers. Thank you so much, and wishing all the best to all of you. Thank you.